So here we have it, boys. It has been finally announced. September the 4th, Darren Till will take on Derek Brunson. Of course, we're all gutted as UK fight fans that we're not getting this at UFC London. The venue is still to be arranged, but we think that it's heading towards Las Vegas and the Apex. What a fight for the ramifications of the middleweight division, especially for our boy Till. We'll get to him in a minute because we're always talking about Till. Mike, I want you to throw some light on Derek Brunson because he's slowly and steadily just been going about his business in this middleweight division. And if he comes to a fight with Darren and gets a sensational finish, he himself has a good argument for a shot at the title.
Yeah, I think his argument isn't as strong as Darren Till's. You know, Derek is a good fighter. He's certainly got better throughout his UFC tenure. He came to the UFC as a wrestler and he was a little sloppy with the striking, and that often got him into problems. He would often lead with his chin, with his hands down, because he has got heavy hands and he believed in them, but he would rush forward with his chin exposed and sometimes ran onto shots. But, you know, he's learned from that. He's got better, and the proof is in the pudding. Last time we saw him against Kevin Holland, you know, there was a couple of scary moments for it, but he leaned on the wrestling and he got the job done. Prior to that, it was a great stoppage of Edmund Shabazian. Again, used the wrestling. You see it here, he took him down, got on top, and got a beautiful finish. So he's on a roll. He's getting better and better. His star doesn't shine quite as brightly as Darren Till's or some other people in the middleweight division, pardon me, but still, he's a solid threat to everybody. So Darren Till, and he never does this anyway. I know he's going to be training properly, and Nick was telling us the other day the sacrifices that Darren's making. He's got to be careful because stylistically, Derek Brunson is a problem because the wrestling, you know, will be an issue for Darren. I'm not saying he can't defend the takedowns, but psychologically, Darren's always going to be aware that the threat of the takedown is there, and sometimes that can force you to freeze up a little bit instead of throwing your own hands. And if he does that, that will allow Derek Brunson, who has a lot of power in his hands, to possibly get off his own shot. So Darren's got to take this one very, very seriously, and we know he is because he wants to fight for that belt. And if he gets through Brunson, there's a good chance that he gets that.
It's mouthwatering. Right, come on, Nick. You did obviously speak to us a little bit last week on where Till is currently at. He's taking this camp incredibly seriously because the ramifications off the back of it mean when the champion's calling your name out and all you need is one win, the next fight after this could be for UFC gold.
Yeah, and it's not just publicly Adesanya's calling him out either. Him and Till are sharing many a private message where they're basically talking about the fight and how the fight has to happen and how Till brings something completely different than a lot of these middleweight rivals. But you know, one thing I think Darren suffered from in his last couple of years is a lack of finishes. I think this Cowboy Cerrone finish over in Poland was the last time he finished a fight, and that's something he's being criticised for. Obviously, he ran into Tyron Woodley in Dallas when he challenged for the title. Then he moved up to middleweight after losing to Masvidal as well. His stint at middleweight looked outstanding in a very close fight in New York against Kelvin Gastelum, but kind of had that swag back again, and then came razor close to lost the decision against Robert Whittaker. But anyone that was watching that fight knows how close that fight was as well. So even Whittaker himself said afterwards that takedown towards the end of the 5th round was just his way to try and prove that he'd won the fight. Even he knew it was close, and I think now we're all standing here saying Whittaker has got to be the next challenger for Adesanya, which I would totally agree with. But when you look back and remember how close that fight was, then you realise how close Till is. And he is truly just one big performance away from a title shot. And I think Brunson, for me, is the type of opponent that is going to bring the best out in Darren Till. I think we're seeing Darren Till kind of refreshed, revitalised, refocused is probably the best word, in fact. And I think he's going to turn up in Las Vegas looking to make a bit of a statement.
Mike, when you look at Till and the way that he approaches fights, and I suppose the fight that I've got in my head is the Robert Whittaker one. From a technical point of view, is the thing that maybe you scream at the TV or when you're on commentary, is it about output for him? Because he's got all the ability in the world, and it just seemed in that particular fight, if there was a little bit more output, he might have been on the other end of the decision there.
Yeah, well, I think higher output is always good for fighters. You know, obviously, the more busy you are and the higher volume, that's always a good thing to have. I recognise one thing that Till, and I'm not criticising, I'm a massive fan of Darren and we're good friends. And I told him this myself personally. I think Darren just needs to add in some boxing footwork because he's very complete. His takedown defense is very good. If he gets taken down, he gets back up well. I'm sure he's got a good ground game as well, although we rarely get to see it. On the feet, we know he's very powerful. He's got great timing as well, and he's got great Thai boxing, some of the best we've got in the UFC. However, Thai boxing as itself, as an art, is limited in terms of the footwork. It doesn't really implement any. There's no evasive or defensive footwork. It's just all standing there in front of your opponent and just trading kicks and shots, and that's great. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. But boxing, as we know, and obviously you guys have a tremendous podcast that you don't shut up about, and yes, we know you're award winners as well, but still, so you recognize the sweet science and the footwork that goes into it, and that is what you see in the complete mixed martial artist. So it's one thing that Darren's lacking a little bit, and I think if he just mixed in some footwork drills, some boxing stuff, you know, some defensive stuff, some cutting angles, things like that, I think that's the only thing that Darren's really missing. You know, so yeah, more input, higher output, pardon me, is always good, and I would like to see that. But a little bit of boxing footwork, a few drills in training camp, that would definitely help as well. And then I think pretty much he'd be very complete as a fighter.
Listen, September 4th is set to be another huge night for UK MMA. Darren Till taking on Derek Brunson, and you'll see it all live on BT Sport.